Have you ever watched someone get laughed at in a room full of people, only to discover later that the person they mocked held more power, more pain, and more quiet strength than anyone in that room could imagine? Picture a hard-working black single father standing in the middle of a glittering celebration meant to honor him, while a woman points, jokes, and turns the entire crowd against him, completely unaware that the man she was humiliating owned the $20 billion company throwing the party. If stories like this move you the way they move us, take a second right now to subscribe to Whispers of Heart 0.2. Hit that like button and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support keeps these true-to-life tales of kindness and redemption coming. Marcus Thompson had spent 15 years raising his daughter alone after his wife passed from a sudden illness. He worked 2 jobs most of those years, days as a maintenance supervisor at a downtown Chicago office tower, nights driving for a rideshare company, just to keep the lights on and make sure little Aaliyah never went without. He never complained. He never asked for pity. Every morning he kissed his daughter on the forehead, told her she was enough, and walked out the door with quiet determination written all over his face. The company that owned the building he worked in was called Horizon Dynamics, a tech giant worth $20 billion. Most employees only knew the founder as a distant, almost mythical figure who rarely appeared in public. What almost no one knew was that Marcus had inherited controlling interest in the company years earlier through a complicated trust left by a distant relative who had recognized something special in him long before success arrived. The lawyers had handled everything quietly. Marcus never changed his lifestyle. He still wore the same worn boots, still fixed the same coffee machines, still stayed late to make sure the night crew had clean break rooms. He simply believed that money without character was empty, and he wanted his daughter to see a man who earned respect the hard way. The night of the celebration was supposed to be different. Horizon Dynamics was marking its 20th anniversary, and the board had insisted on a formal recognition for long-serving staff. Marcus had been selected as Employee of the Decade. Someone high up had arranged for him to receive the award in front of executives, partners, and a few celebrity guests. Aaliyah, now 12, had helped him pick out a new shirt. She was so proud she could barely sit still. The ballroom sparkled with crystal and soft gold light. Marcus stood near the edge of the stage, heart thumping, when a sharp-voiced woman named Victoria Lang, recently promoted to a senior marketing role, stepped up to the microphone ahead of schedule. She had never liked Marcus. She saw him as the quiet black man who cleaned floors and never pushed for attention. In her mind, he didn't belong among the suited crowd. She smiled the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. "Before we get to the official awards," she said, voice dripping with false sweetness, "I think we should acknowledge the real star of the night, our very own maintenance supervisor, Marcus Thompson. The man who single-handedly keeps the bathrooms sparkling so the rest of us can focus on important work." Laughter rippled through the room. A few people shifted uncomfortably, but most joined in. Victoria continued, painting him as the comic relief, the single dad who somehow manages, while the rest of them built empires. She made jokes about his second job, about how he probably still clipped coupons, about how touching it was that even the help gets a night out. Marcus felt the heat rise in his face. He looked across the room and saw Aaliyah standing near the back, eyes wide and shining with tears she was trying not to let fall. That was the moment that nearly broke him. Not the laughter, not the pointed words. The sight of his daughter watching her father become the joke. He could have walked out. He could have raised his voice. Instead, he did something quieter and far more powerful. He stepped forward, took the microphone gently from Victoria's hand, and spoke in a calm, steady voice that somehow carried farther than any shout. "I appreciate the introduction," he said. "You're right about one thing. I do clean the floors. I fix the lights. I make sure the people who build the future have a clean place to work. And I'm a single dad who has done everything I can to raise a daughter who treats every person with dignity, no matter what job they hold." The room grew quiet. Marcus looked at Victoria, then at the crowd. Kindness isn't weakness. It's the decision to see people clearly even when it's easier to look down on them. Tonight some of you laughed. That's okay. I still hope every one of you goes home and treats the next person you meet a little softer than you planned to. Because you never know whose story you're stepping into. He handed the microphone back and walked toward his daughter. Aaliyah ran into his arms. In that moment, the real celebration began. Not the one with champagne and speeches, but the one that happens when a child sees her parent choose grace under fire. What happened next still moves people who were in that room. The company's general counsel, who had known the truth for years, stepped onto the stage. In a clear, respectful voice, he announced that Marcus Thompson was not merely an employee of the decade. He was the majority owner of Horizon Dynamics. The room went completely still. Victoria's face drained of color. Phones came out. Whispers turned into stunned silence. Marcus never sought the spotlight. He never wanted revenge. When the board offered to remove Victoria, he asked them to keep her on, with one condition. She would spend the next 6 months working alongside the maintenance team, learning every name, every schedule, every quiet act of service that kept the company running. She agreed, shaken and humbled. Over the following months, something unexpected grew. Victoria began to change. She saw the late nights Marcus still put in even after the truth was public. She watched him stay after hours to tutor a young janitor's son in math. She listened as he spoke gently to employees who were struggling. Slowly, the hardness in her voice softened. One evening, she found Marcus alone in the supply room restocking paper towels and simply said, "I was wrong. Thank you for not becoming what I tried to make you." Marcus nodded. "We all get chances to start over. I'm glad you're taking yours." The story spread far beyond the company walls. People began talking about the black single father who owned a $20 billion company, yet still chose to lead with quiet kindness instead of power. Aaliyah watched her father become a living example of the lessons he had taught her since she was small, that real strength doesn't need to announce itself, and that treating people well is never a waste. Years later, when Marcus finally stepped back from daily operations, he established a foundation that provides emergency support, mentorship, and educational scholarships for single parents across the country. The first major gift went to a program that helps children of maintenance and service workers attend college. He named it after his late wife. Looking back, Marcus often says the night he was mocked was one of the most important of his life. Not because of the revelation that followed, but because of the choice he made in the middle of the laughter. He could have matched cruelty with cruelty. Instead, he offered dignity. And that single decision rippled outward in ways no one could have predicted. Kindness is not the soft option. It is the brave one. It is the decision to keep your heart open when the world tries to harden it. It is the quiet strength of a father who refuses to let bitterness steal the example he wants to leave his child. In a country that sometimes forgets how powerful everyday grace can be, stories like Marcus Thompson's remind us that the people we overlook may be the ones carrying the heaviest loads and the deepest capacity to lift others. So the next time you see someone who looks tired or different or simply out of place, remember the man who stood on that stage and chose kindness when mockery would have been easier. You never know whose story you are walking into, and you never know how far one act of unexpected grace can travel. Carry that with you. Speak a little softer. Look a little longer. Offer the kindness you hope someone will one day offer your own child. Because in the end, the measure of a life is not how many people laugh with you, but how many people you help stand a little taller after the laughter fades.